German industry is facing unprecedented challenges and the longest period of economic malaise in the modern republic's 75-year history. With even established giants like Volkswagen in dire straits, companies need to go greener and become more innovative.
There are companies who have set extremely ambitious targets and are now realizing that this is harder than they thought.
Might climate protection pose a threat to the German economy? And is it actually affordable? Some major corporations have reduced their emissions. Energy company RWE, Mercedes-Benz, industrial conglomerate Siemens and cement manufacturer Heidelberg Materials. Staying with RWE, the energy supplier wants to phase out coal-fired power generation over the next 5 years. In the course of its transition to renewables, through 2030 the company will be investing 55 billion euros. Together with compensatory measures, the plan is to further cut emissions and by 2040 hit the target of net zero.
We're coming out of a few years in which climate protection has been one of the key topics in global media. In almost every boardroom conversation we know, this was one of the 3 top priorities.
Industry consultant Jens Burchardt is very familiar with the corporations and their green strategies. Have those conversations borne any concrete results?
Very many companies have set targets, and because that has been the case, it has become something that companies competed on in their respective sectors, and no one wanted to be substantially less ambitious than major competitors were.
If you pollute a lot, you also have to reduce a lot. RWE has made progress, but remains the second biggest CO2 emitter in Germany. We'll get to the top polluter shortly, as well as further examples of positive news in the green transition. First, let's take a look at the German economy, which has been in recession for 2 years straight. And the signs for 2025 are not good. There are at least 3 main reasons for this unparalleled situation. First, China. German car sales there are down and Chinese electric vehicles are relatively cheap. So now the likes of BYD are currently conquering European markets. Second, wage levels. VW, for example, pays above average wages, making its products more expensive. The company has plans to close factories and slash 35,000 jobs. Third, high energy costs. In Germany, 1 megawatt-hour of electricity costs car makers 190 euros. Compare that with 132 euros in Spain, 89 in China, and just 69 euros in the US. The price of energy might go up or down from one day to the next, but the general pattern of disparity is clear. 3 industries produce particularly high amounts of CO2 and now have to invest in green technologies: cement, chemicals and steel. Cement is a serious polluter, currently the biggest by carbon emissions in Germany. Its production generates a lot of CO2 while consuming enormous quantities of energy. Globally, cement makers emit more greenhouse gases than even the aviation industry. Heidelberg Materials is among the world's top 5 cement suppliers and has ambitious plans for the future, becoming carbon neutral by 2050. In recent years, producers have been under growing pressure on this front from investment funds. The CEO of Heidelberg Materials has himself pointed to potential investors demanding a green commitment. Many want to see innovative, future-oriented technologies as opposed to fossil fuels.
Sie kriegen doch gar kein Geld mehr für Investitionen in alte Geschäftsmodelle.
Sabine Nallinger heads a foundation bringing together almost 30 major companies to promote market-based and sustainable solutions.
Die Finanzbranche ist da sehr aufmerksam geworden und schaut sich sehr genau an, welche Investitionen sie unterstützt. Und sie kriegen überhaupt kein Geld mehr auf dem Finanzmarkt, wenn sie noch in Fossile investieren. Das heißt, die Unternehmen haben doch gar keine Chance, als tatsächlich jetzt auf Wasserstoff zu setzen, auf grünen Strom zu setzen und ihre Produktion umzustellen.
Next up, the chemicals industry. BASF has invested in a demonstration plant for electric steam cracking. Steam cracking is essential for the production of light plastics and cosmetics. By using electricity from renewable energy sources, the new technology has the potential to cut CO2 emissions from steam cracking by 90%. The world's largest chemicals producer has made a big commitment to its green transition between now and 2028, totaling 2.4 billion euros. It's unusual for companies to publish such specific figures due to widespread reluctance to make solid commitments.
Ich gehe mal davon aus, dass solche Zahlen eben man nicht gerne veröffentlicht, damit die Wettbewerber sehen, wie stringent die Strategie ist und wie groß die Finanzvolumina sind. Also das hat natürlich oft auch diesen Hintergrund. Und dann ist es, glaube ich, auch vielleicht ganz schwer oft zu kalkulieren, was genau zählt man jetzt zur grünen Transformation.
Plenty of companies want to move away from outdated production methods, including in the steel sector. ThyssenKrupp is another big CO2 emitter. Instead of environmentally harmful coal, Germany's biggest steel producer plans to fuel its plants with green hydrogen. But financial help is at hand for transitioning production with a range of subsidies and grants available in Germany. ThyssenKrupp has negotiated a total of at least 2 billion euros, while also profiting from a new tool, a climate protection agreement with the German government. Example: a steel beam costs 100 euros, rising by a further 25 due to production with green technology. The government covers the difference in order to keep its companies competitive. There is substantial interest in industry. The money pledged is performance-related, i.e. dependent on the required emissions reductions being made. But are companies taking those goals seriously enough?
German companies are actually among the most sensitive to, especially to environmental goals. They have, in general, moved relatively rapidly compared to other countries to try to understand what it means to succeed in a business, so to create profit and returns for shareholders.
Maurizio Zollo is a professor of strategy and sustainability in London. Companies have set themselves binding climate targets. Some of this is, of course, down to greenwashing, where PR supersedes genuine progress. But many companies are taking concrete action.
There are many companies who have quite a significant reputation to maintain. It's quite a big step for companies to take back targets that they have set. Right now, they still try to achieve both economic success and bringing down emissions.
Some corporations have even increased their CO2 emissions, such as Adidas, drug maker Merck, financial services firm Deutsche Börse, as well as DHL and electricity provider E.ON. Critical voices say not enough companies are committed for the Paris Climate Agreement goals to be reached. German airline Lufthansa plans to be climate neutral by 2050, which means phasing out kerosene. Synthetic aircraft fuel is a green alternative. SAF accounts for 0.3% of global jet fuel, while 1 billion liters of kerosene are burned in aircraft engines every day, 12,000 liters per second. A real solution has yet to be seen anywhere in the commercial aviation industry, including Lufthansa. Meanwhile, there's the lack of zero-emissions aircraft. In a setback, Airbus recently abandoned plans to launch the world's first hydrogen-powered commercial airliner. Then there is Mercedes. The CEO wants to continue making combustion engine cars well into the next decade, effectively postponing the target for making the brand all-electric. German car makers have been accused of lacking credibility and publishing vague climate strategies. What is certain is that companies are under pressure from the state to innovate.
The goals that were set up at the Paris Agreement in 2015 were all signed by governments, and they have committed to deliver their targets by 2030 and then eventually to 2050.
Germany has pledged to go climate neutral by 2045. The European Union's target is not quite as ambitious, setting a date of 2050. Either way, the challenge ahead is steep and above all pricey. That German climate commitment primarily means German industry. with the small and medium-sized businesses as well as big corporations having to make the target a reality.
Von dem gesamten Kuchen an Investments kommen vielleicht maximal 20% vom Staat. Die restlichen 80% müssen von der Privatwirtschaft kommen. Und der Staat muss jetzt kluge Anreize setzen, um die 80% aus der Privatwirtschaft zu mobilisieren.
Do investments in climate protection pay off in the long term? Committing a higher proportion of GDP globally would generate a dividend of up to €5 for every €1 invested, also due to the subsequent reduction in costly environmental damage. Another new finding, at companies where executives do not receive bonuses for going greener, the transition progresses more slowly and climate targets are less likely to be achieved. DHL, for example, has actually increased its CO2 emissions recently, with no significant climate-related bonuses for board members. Whereas at RWE, they make up 13% of executives' pay as the transition is making significant progress. So does climate protection pose a threat to the German economy? Companies have to pay for every ton of carbon they produce, and those costs are rising. The climate crisis means they have to transition, even if that's a very difficult move for some. And where is the clean power going to come from? And the urgently needed green hydrogen? Can industry overcome these daunting challenges? Tell us what you think in the comments.